Yeah, hello. I'd like to make a missing persons report. Yeah. Uh, Last name Defense, first name Chelsea. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel today for the first episode of the Blue Review, the series on the channel where I go over my thoughts on the previous game, in this case being our pre-season fixture versus Manchester City, in which case it was shocking. Absolutely shocking. Basically, I will go over some of my thoughts on the play, on the players themselves, possibly of some of the manager's decisions, and give my overall thoughts on how I believe this affects us in the long term and where I believe we're going to improve or need to improve in the following games. I will be conducting this with 7 points in total, possibly for players, possibly for management, or possibly for tactics or something along those lines. Each point will be illustrated by a different colour to match how I believe they performed and how I believe they worked out in this performance. So they will be obviously red for bad performance, blue for good performance, and yellow for mid performance. Without further ado, I will begin with my first point, and that is a red for Moises Caicedo. Caicedo was not ready. He was not ready for this game. I believe this was a massive trial by fire for him. He was not ready to be thrown into this game, and that was evident from about 5 minutes in with that misplaced pass for the second goal. It was a really poor performance from Caicedo. Obviously, this is his first game of pre-season. He's not played enough to understand the system yet, and honestly probably not enough to be fit to be playing a game of this caliber yet. It was probably not a great decision to have him start this game, and he got thrown in the deep end massively with this. He will probably improve on this. I believe this is just ring rust. Oh, sorry. I believe he was just rusty in general, because obviously it's been a while since he played. Obviously he's been on holiday since getting knocked out of the Copa America. I think Caicedo will do better in the system, but for now, it wasn't a good performance. On to the second point, and that is once again a red for Tosin Adarabioyo. This was by far and away the worst performance out of the four from Tosin so far. Obviously, he was at fault for that first goal where we conceded the penalty. By the way, not a penalty. In any circumstances, not a penalty. It just wasn't. But Tosin was at fault for that, and he, despite him having the perfect profile to deal with someone the likes of Erling Haaland, obviously equally as tall, equally as quick, I didn't see him go up to Haaland once. Like, I did not see him challenging once from memory. This won't be like everyone. I don't think this is a consistent thing from Tosin, because we've seen in the past couple of games he is a very consistent defender. I think this was just a one-off, and thankfully there aren't many strikers in the Premier League or around Europe that are like Erling Haaland, that are as big as him, as strong as him, as fast as him. So it won't always happen for Tosin, but he does need to learn how to deal with someone like Haaland. He should be able to deal with him, like straight up, he should be able to. On size and speed alone, Tosin should be able to match him pretty easily. But whether he was caught out of position or he just wasn't marking Haaland or something along those lines, it wasn't a good performance from Tosin. It just wasn't. Moving on to my third point, and I'm going to give a yellow to Levi Colwill. Levi Colwill has been getting slated a bit too much for my liking for this game. I personally don't believe he was at fault for much. Now, yes, he was technically the one that conceded the penalty, but as I said, I don't personally believe that was a penalty. So I think that's possibly very harsh to blame him for that. There is the argument that Levi can be quite rash in those situations, so he does need to be careful in those situations to make sure this kind of scenario doesn't happen. We know what dicks Premier League referees are, so there is a very real chance that if that to happen in the Premier League, that he gets given and VAR won't touch it. So he does need to be very careful about that. He was undone for the third goal by Oscar Bob. Not really his fault. He's left in a 2-on-1 situation in which if he marks one of them, the ball goes to the other one, and he can't do anything about it. He was isolated for that one. That's not really his fault. That's the players around him's fault. So I'm not going to blame him for that. He possibly shouldn't have let the ball go in. It goes through his legs. So there is possibly that argument. He shouldn't have let the ball go in. But personally, I believe that's possibly quite harsh. When Levi's playing with the right back inverted, he has half a job. He has half a job as a left back, half a job as a centre back. When the left back inverts, his job is completely as a centre back, whether it's a left-sided centre back or in a back three or a back four. So I believe this was better from him. It was just unfortunate. It was a very good opposition. Colwill is a very good player, so we need to remember that. And I think he's got a massive role to play in Maresca's system, but he does, to a degree, he needs the right partner and the right players around him just to make sure we don't get in these situations, like when he was left 2-on-1 with Bob and the other player whose name escapes me. If we had someone like Cucurella on the pitch, I don't believe we would have been in that situation. I think Cucurella would have dealt with one of them to leave Levi to deal with the other one. So that will obviously be fixed once Cucurella comes back into the squad. So hopefully this won't become a reoccurring thing. We move into my fourth point for who I believe was the man of the match. I'm giving a blue to Noni Madueke. When he came on, he just instantly showed what he was capable of in that kind of scenario. He obviously got the assist for Raheem Sterling's goal, a beautiful right-footed cross as well, so I think that he has very clearly been working on his right-footed cross, which is very important. As a winger, you do need to be able to cross the ball, and if you're left-footed playing on the right, you need to be able to, you score with your left foot, you cross with your right foot. Noni's right foot has been weak at times previously, so it is good to know that he's been working on it. And then obviously he got the second goal. Good well taken goal as well, to be fair, slotted it away across the ground, sensible, good take. Noni was the only one really providing much danger, along with someone else who I'll cover in a second. He does need to be starting, I think, the remainder of preseason games again. Well, okay, the game against Real Madrid. Do I think he should be the starting right winger? No, because I believe that is Cole Palmer's position. Personally, I know a lot of people fancy him more as a 10. I think he works perfectly fine as a right winger, and that can act as a 10 in middle of games if necessary, but Madueke is more than a serviceable deputy to him. Coming off the bench, he seems to do really well coming off the bench as well. Like, I noticed this last season towards December time, when Madueke was coming off the bench, he was doing really well, so he could work brilliantly as an impact sub, but that is something to consider as I move into my fifth point, which is his opposite winger. It's a blue for Raheem Sterling. Obviously, he scored the first goal off of Madueke's assist, which was the best goal of the match by far. Left-footed volley into the top corner. Brilliant goal from Sterling. Whenever the ball got to him, he did look dangerous with it. He was taking his men on. The only problem with Sterling is the same problem that he has been having for the past year. His decision-making is still poor. The amount of times he should probably be crossing that ball, but he instead just tries to turn around and pass it backwards, is really annoying. And he is more than capable of crossing with his left foot, so he should really be crossing that ball. I know for a large part of that we didn't have a proper target man because we had Nkunku. I'm going to cover that in a minute. But other than that, pretty strong performance for Sterling. I will say though, he is 100% responsible for that third goal. It was a poor pass from him, really. Him and Gusto were simultaneously at fault for that. I'm going to cover him in a second as well. Other than that, though, pretty strong performance from Sterling. If we do end up playing natural left wingers, Sterling needs to start over Mudryk. Mudryk did not have the best performance yesterday. I don't particularly think it was awful. He's not a right winger. I understand the idea they were trying to go for here, which was having right-footed player on the right, left-footed player on the left with Kiernan Dewsbury Hall. So then you can actually have people crossing the ball into Nkunku. Two problems with that. One, Mudryk his crossing ability is suspect to a degree. It's not the worst, but it is suspect at times, so there is that. Two, you need to be doing that with a target man. You can't do that with a player like Nkunku. The other thing I'm going to say on Nkunku, he's not a 9. He can't be playing as a 9. If we're going to be playing a striker, we need to play either Nicholas Jackson or Mark Yu or someone else if we are to sign them. But we can't be playing Christopher Nkunku as the striker. Moving on to who, in my opinion, has been Chelsea's best player of pre-season, Romeo Lavia. This might be a controversial statement, but at the minute it probably shouldn't be. Romeo Lavia needs to start for Chelsea. He has been absolutely fantastic for us this entire preseason. He is a fantastic number 6. He's able to win the ball back. He's able to play the ball. Like, his ball playing ability is fantastic. That ball he played up to Madueke to score, he did a similar thing with Raheem Sterling in the Club America game the other day. He is a brilliant ball playing midfielder. So, on top of being able to defend the backline incredibly well, he 100% needs to start come the beginning of the season. Who he displaces in that team, I'm not quite sure. I have a feeling if it is going to be somebody, it's going to be Enzo Fernandez, because that's a very similar role for him. It might be Moises Caicedo, it could be Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, I don't know. We're going to have to wait and find out from the end of the season. We'll probably have a grander idea of what Maresca plans to do when we get to the Inter Milan game the week before the season starts. So we'll find out then. But at the minute, Lavia needs to be starting. He's been instrumental to our team this entire preseason, and he's been pretty much the best. He has been the best player of preseason. Where would we have been last season if we had this guy on our team? Because he looks brilliant. Liverpool fans are going to be absolutely crying their eyes out once they see this guy. They're going to be kicking themselves so bad that they did not sign this guy. And on to my last point, and unfortunately I am going to end it on a pretty negative note, and that is a red for Malo Gusto. This is probably quite substantially the worst performance for Chelsea by Gusto. I don't know what was the matter with him. Like, his defensive acumen was not up to it today. He was playing as a left winger, which really isn't his fault. That is on Maresca more than anything. It wasn't a good performance from Gusto. His inversion wasn't working the way it should be. Like what we saw in that Club America game with the fluid football, with everything going through Gusto, was spectacular. That wasn't working with this. I don't know why. Playing him on the left wing also doesn't work, or left wing, left back kind of situation, because he's not left footed and his left foot cross isn't the best, which is why we often saw him cutting back on his right to cross the ball in. We saw this for England in the Euros with Kieran Trippier. Kieran Trippier basically could not cross with the left foot, so he had to constantly cut back on his right to put the ball in. We can't really be affording to do that. We need a left-footed across the ball there. In an ideal world, that's going to be Marc Cucurella once we get back to the UK and he's available for selection. But even then, if we weren't doing that, why wasn't Ben Chilwell on the pitch? That is Ben Chilwell's bread and butter, being able to get forward and cross the ball in the box. If we were doing that, Ben Chilwell should have been on the pitch. Or even Renato Vega. Like, Renato Vega's possibly not the most advanced fullback there is, but he's at least left-footed, so he might have been able to just go forward and put the left foot cross it. Playing Gusto there, I understand him playing as a left-back because defensively he's relatively solid as a left-back, and when he can invert, he is fine, but playing him off the left wing as a left-back does not work. There is positives to be taken from this game, and largely that we can learn from it. We play Man City on the first game of the season, we can learn from this. Now granted, their squad's going to be much tougher than this. This was a majority of academy kids, along with pretty much Calvin Phillips, Joshua Gvardiol, Erling Haaland, and Jack Grealish, and that was it. Like, the majority of this was just academy kids. This is a good test. Bad performance, but a good test. The game against Real Madrid. That's going to be a very interesting game to see, because obviously it's Maresca versus Carlo. Carlo, I believe, was one of Maresca's mentors at one point. So it'll be very interesting to see how that works. And obviously Madrid are probably the best team in the world right now, so it'll be very interesting to see how we play against them. I said it in the game, in the preview, in the countdown. It's Man City, okay? Like, I know it's their academy kids, but like, it is Man City at the end of the day. They're still a brilliant team with a brilliant manager, so you can't be too disheartened by it. The only thing that makes it disheartening is just the lack of experience among their players and how we got picked apart so easily. But we didn't really get picked apart. We just had huge individual errors. The errors made were avoidable. They will be ironed out by practicing this system, so we can know what to do, what not to do. So those will be ironed out eventually and reduced to a minimum. The one good thing I'm going to say about this game, we did play well. Apart from those 2 moments of madness in the first and the second half respectively, we played well. We did look dangerous. Now, the things to consider, obviously, it is only pre-season, so no one's really gunning for each other, not completely anyway. And their team did mostly consist of their academy, which isn't particularly brilliant for us. The most important thing to figure is that we can learn from this. We can learn from this performance for the beginning of the season. So we know what to do, what not to do, and how to win. it wasn't a good performance, but it is something to be learned from. We move on to the Madrid game, and hopefully better times ahead. I think I'm going to wrap that up there. So I have been the Crimson Wolf. I am the reddest Chelsea fan on the internet. We look forward to better performances than the one we saw yesterday. So until then, peace out and good luck with it up the Blues.